I'm Tim, welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the IWC Vintage Aquatimer Automatic 1967. You can see this reference 323101 and purchase it on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full listing for this watch with additional accessories included, high resolution images, and naturally complete pricing details. Now, on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, the vintage is somewhat larger than its historical inspiration, the 1967 IWC Aquatimer reference 812. That was a 42. This one's a little bit bigger at 44, but it maintains the aesthetic and the proportions almost perfectly. Now, it's not that thick. Though 44 millimeters across, the watch is 14.5 millimeters in thickness, but it doesn't wear that thick, and here's why. You can see that the case back has a little bit of a cup profile to it, and when I put it on my wrist and I strap it down, applying even the smallest amount of pressure from the strap, the watch sinks into the wrist, so this is an easy watch to wear in spite of its thickness with a tight formal sleeve or formal attire. Really, the watch with its combination of white metal and black dial is exceptionally aesthetic and exceptionally versatile from a sartorial standpoint. Now, it's also worth mentioning that from lug to lug, the watch is quite reasonable for a 44 millimeter timepiece, 51.5 millimeters, but it doesn't wear that broad. And again, it has to do with the shape of the case and lug combination. You can see that the lugs turn down rather dramatically as they exit the flank of the case, such that it does sort of wrap itself around a smaller wrist, and it's paired with a superb natural vulcanized rubber strap. This one's designed top and bottom to evoke the tropic straps that would have shipped with the 1967 reference 812 Aquatimer. You can see the texture on the top and the immense amount of evacuation on the bottom, and it's that evacuation on the bottom that makes this such a handsome piece and an easy one to wear on a hot day when your wrist is sweaty, when there is grit and sand underneath. This allows your wrist to breathe more, and it allows that heat and sweat and sand to work its way out. Now, it's paired with a traditional IWC pin buckle. This one is common to many IWC references. However, it serves the purpose perfectly and it fits the vintage aesthetic of the watch ideally. Now, it's worth mentioning that in 2008, when this reference was introduced, IWC was on a bit of a vintage streak. They introduced a vintage Ingenieur, they introduced a vintage pilot's watch, and of course, they introduced this vintage 1967 Aquatimer. And you can see that the essential features of the original are maintained in the shape of the case, in the shape of the lugs, in the proportion of bezel to dial. All of it remains true to history. And if you're a history buff, you'll immediately recognize this case shape, not exclusive to IWC, though abundantly associated with it. This is the old super compressor case invented by Erwin Pickeret during the 1950s. It's important to note that it was shared with many others like the Vulcain Nautical, the Longines Diver, the Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris, and in fact, some of these other brands have issued watches very much like this. Longines with its Heritage Diver in 2007, and JLC the same year this watch came out with its tribute to Polaris. But the Aquatimer has a unique look once you get within the bezel. All of a dial, it's set up exactly like its historical forebear. Everything from the shape of the indices to their length to the shape of the hands. It's a very true historic recreation, and the combination of green tinted luminova on a matte black nicely recreates the look of the original. Now, there are a few features here worth mentioning. First, like the original, the second crown, in this case at 4 o'clock, actuates the internal rotating bezel. Now, you can line the index up with the minute hand, and I'll do that just like so. And now you have the ability to time 0 to 60 minutes. It's an impromptu chronograph. Moreover, the crown at 2 o'clock, or I should say approximately 2:30, allows you to hack the balance, so you can precisely set this one to a known accurate reference clock or dive timer, and then in the intermediate position, the watch also features a quick set date. Unlike the original, this one features a display case back, but you'll note the vintage style International Watch Co. signature on the winding mass. Now, the movement in here is an IWC in-house caliber. It's called an 80111, so automatic winding with a 44-hour power reserve. You can see the pawls and wheel of IWC's signature Peloton winding system. You can see the balance beating away at 4 Hz, of course, quick set and hacking seconds. It's a rugged sports watch caliber, and with a screw-in case back and a screw-down crown, the watch is endowed with 120-meter water resistance. So, although historically inspired, it does meet the modern ISO 6425 statutory definition of a dive watch. You can see and you can purchase this vintage-inspired IWC Aquatimer on our website.